Training roadshows have made stops nationwide to help teachers, companies, and web developers. But this stop in Los Angeles is Google Roadshow's first specifically to help a municipal agency. The city's ITA provides computer support, public safety communications, and a range of other high-tech services.
The City of Los Angeles are active Gmail users. We have over 20,000 employees who use Google products here. Our ability to improve the way we use our calendars, the way we send our emails, the way we build sites or forms and use Google Drive make us that much more effective at the City of Los Angeles.
At City Hall in downtown, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
And for LA City workers who missed the seminar, no worries. More training days are scheduled in the downtown area soon. The Cuban American Music Festival delivered the salsa to downtown. It also brought cigars, a twist on vegan food, and some car culture history. And as Gil Reyes reports, U.S. veterans proud of their Caribbean roots.
Cuban superstar Pedro Calvo from the legendary group Los Van Van headlined downtown's Cuban American Music Festival.
Super happy. Everyone's super cheerful, dancing, having a good time.
And we love salsa.
The celebration in its second year was co-organized by United States Army Colonel, Battalion Commander, and dentist Diana Zashel.
My parents are immigrants to this country. They were proud Americans, and they're proud from their country where they came from. So I wanted to honor my mother who passed away, about her culture and how rich it was, and with the music and the dancing and the food.
Some 42,000 Cuban Americans reside here in Los Angeles County, but this is the only music and arts festival dedicated solely to that community. But make no mistake about it, this event isn't just for Cuban Americans, it's for everybody that resides in Los Angeles.
I love it. Outstanding. With a cigar in my hand.
There were even cigar-making classes. On hand, shop owner Raul Rayner. He broke a Guinness record last year by rolling the world's longest stogie, 332 feet. That's longer than a football field. So what are the current embargo rules for Cuban cigars, arguably the best in the world?
So you can go to Cuba and purchase cigars and bring them back and smoke on personal consumption, not a problem. It's not considered contraband. However, commercial reasons, you can't really sell them.
But what we could sell were Cuban-style churros.
We make different toppings, like the coconut rum sauce one. It's a coquito one, so it's infused with rum for the Cuban festival.
Also classic Cuban fare like papas fritas, but with vegan chili.
We basically have just taken traditional Cuban recipes and we've just adapted them. So I make my sofrito, all my seasonings, all of my sauces are the same recipes my grandmother would use. The only thing we've changed is the meat.
Photojournalist Parvez showed us how Cuba's cars remain frozen in time since the U.S. trade embargo. Cuba's newest American cars are from the 1950s and can only be found in big cities like Havana.
But the further you go away from Havana, the cars get older to the point where cars disappear. So for example, if you go to Trinidad is 8 hours away. In Trinidad, cars start disappearing, or cars are into 1920s cars. And if you keep on going further away, cars disappear, and then it's horse and carriage.
LA City Controller Ron Galperin honored event promoters Yambu Productions and La Plaza de Cultura y Artes.
And who doesn't love Cuban culture? And Los Angeles, which has the second biggest population of Cubans outside of Cuba and outside of Miami, what a great testament to this city.
The City of Angels, where all cultures are celebrated. In downtown Los Angeles, I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
And the beat goes on as organizers are busy planning their Festival of the Americas concert, celebrating all Latin cultures. That festival will take place in August. How prepared are Angelenos when it comes to fire safety? Rasha Gawal has more on how city leaders are ensuring residents are prepared.
That smoke alarm is a small investment that potentially could save a life. But officials say you'd be surprised by the number of residents who don't have an active smoke alarm.
Research shows that almost 250,000 people in the city of Los Angeles do not have working smoke alarms in their homes. And it's so important to get into those homes and find out what they need.
And that's why Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez and officials from the Los Angeles Fire Department and My Safe LA, an organization promoting fire and life safety, are emphasizing the importance of public safety.
We are going door to door and block by block to start connecting with our residents to make sure that they're aware of all of the services that we are here to provide and making sure that they are safe in the face of a number of the emergencies that we could be confronted with.
Since 2014, MySafe LA has installed more than 35,000 smoke alarms in homes all over the city of LA. That has led to a 40% reduction in residential fire fatalities.
10 years leading up to 2014, on average, 21 people a year died at fires in Los Angeles. And during the last 4 years, we've seen that come down to 12. And that's a really terrific step. We'd like to see it down to 8 a year and then down to 0 at some point in time.
So the message here, make sure your smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors are working.
We all know what happened in the Creek Fire. We know what happened in the Latuna Fire. Those were tragic to our community, but I still believe the emergency preparedness that all these partners demonstrated facilitated greater public safety.
And it all begins in your home. I'm Rasha Goel for LA This Week.
Fighting Fists of Fury joined forces in support of traditional Chinese martial arts. Gil Reyes tells us why from LA's Chinatown.
You could say they're fighting to keep an ancient art form relevant.
Sifu master grandmasters of at least 40 different styles, and it's just an absolute miracle for all these fighters to be in the same room so peacefully.
They're actually fighting together to keep Kung Fu alive and kicking and punching in Southern California. This dinner in LA's Chinatown awards pioneers in the Chinese martial arts community and raises money to help keep their schools operating. That's the mission of the Traditional Chinese Martial Arts Federation of Los Angeles, the group formed last year.
In the spirit of a friendship, the unity, and the respect. That's our mission statement.
Well, events like this is helping to hold us together. The MMA became very popular. We need something to help our survival, because what's happening right now, we're getting overcome by some of the sport arts, some of the wushu arts, even out of China, and what we're trying to do is carry the ancient art.
Not just for self-defense, but for good, heart-pumping exercise, too. LA City Councilman David Rue says he's trained.
The entire City Council and the Mayor joins in your celebration, and we hope this event only gets larger and larger every single year.
Keeping the fighting spirit alive in LA's Chinatown. I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
And that was the Federation's second annual fundraiser. More money is coming in to help fix our roads. Some middle school kids make school safety a priority, and a local park gets some much-needed upgrades thanks to the community. All this in City Beat.
Mayor Eric Garcetti gathered with transportation leaders at Union Station to highlight more than $1.2 billion in funds awarded to Southern California transportation projects. The funds will go towards repairing California's crumbling transportation infrastructure. Funding will support highway and road maintenance, increased public transit, and construction of local priority transportation projects.
I want to see my daughter. I want to see my wife. I don't want to be stuck in traffic. All of us have a place to be, and we're driving over potholed roads, crumbling bridges. We don't have enough transit options. SB 1 shows a way forward.
In collaboration with State Farm, the Mayor's Vision Zero, and Los Angeles Unified School District, Los Angeles Rams punter Johnny Hecker and Rams cheerleaders surprised students at Columbus Middle School to announce the school as the winner of the Street Safety Hero Pledge Contest, after its students submitted the highest share, 86%, of pledges to be street safety heroes as part of the Safe Routes to School program. Students take the pledge to be a safe pedestrian and remind family and friends who drive to be aware of people walking and biking on our streets. Councilman Jose Huizar and community members gathered to unveil $700,000 worth of improvements to San Pasqual Park. Community suggested improvements include a new playground, outdoor fitness area, a basketball court, ADA walkways, and a refurbished parking lot. Phase 2 of the project will add new restrooms. Councilmember Huizar's office held 5 community meetings with the San Pasqual Neighborhood Watch to discuss park safety and instituted the improvements to make the space more active.
It only happened because the community is active, involved, and engaged.
The summer vacation season began with a patriotic salute to fallen service members. Gil Reyes has more from Memorial Day commemorations on the east side and in Canoga Park.
Within LA City, few communities have as much small-town flavor as Canoga Park. And it's here in Canoga Park where a wreath dedication for fallen service members takes place every Memorial Day.
It's a very patriotic part of Los Angeles, part of this country, and you'll see it. You'll see it in people lining the streets and cheering on, all the floats that go by.
What follows is Canoga Park's Memorial Day Parade. Service members, flag wavers, and local leaders make their way down Sherman Way for the biggest Memorial Day procession in California. Tens of thousands come to honor military men and women who died while serving.
Because a lot of them are forgotten. A lot of people were forgotten and still are forgotten.
Because they gave up their life to give us freedom. And I think that's an awesome thing.
It's also an opportunity to say thank you to those who are alive, who are veterans, who need our help, so many of which are living on the streets of Los Angeles. And we have an obligation in the memory of all those who have fallen to make sure that we take care of all of our vets.
Over on LA's east side, people honor the dead at El Sereno Memorial Monument. For decades, Northeast LA has sent many of its young residents to war. Many of them did not make it home. For Northeast Councilman and first-generation American Jose Huizar, it's a time to honor those who died for freedoms many of us take for granted.
Not all people in the world can have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to congregate, and freedoms to march and protest against our own government. And the opportunities that we have in this country are tremendous.
Things to remember while enjoying summer vacation with friends and family. I'm Gil Reyes for LA This Week.
Other commemorations took place at the LA National Cemetery in Westwood, the World War II Memorial in Boyle Heights, Forest Lawn Cemetery in Hollywood, and at the LA Coliseum. We'll join Councilmember Paul Krikorian for a hike and get a free tree. Get inspired with a tour of some ranch-style homes from the 40s and come out for a block party and go home with a new four-legged family member. All this in this week's Things to Do. Nature is calling. Join Councilmember Paul Krikorian, Assemblymember Nazarian, and Tree People for a Saturday morning hike in beautiful Coldwater Canyon Park. The first 50 people who show up will also get a free tree. It all takes place Saturday, June 9th at 9 a.m. at Coldwater Canyon Park, located at 12601 Mulholland Drive in Beverly Hills. To RSVP, visit paulkrikorian.org/treepeoplehike. Author Chris LeCather will take attendees on a stroll in Valley Glen of a cluster of special ranch-style homes built by William Mellenthin in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. His singular brand of cozy, charming homes, which became known as the Mellenthin Birdhouse Ranch Home, so called because they featured a cupola or dovecote built prominently into the roof. As a special treat, one of the homeowners will open up their home for a tour. Light snacks and beverages will be offered. Water will be provided to all attendees. Make sure to wear walking shoes, sunscreen, and bring a hat in case it's hot. The tour takes place Saturday, June 9th from 10 a.m. to 12 noon at the corner of Addison and Ethel in Sherman Oaks. Whether you have 2 legs or 4 furry ones, this promises to be fun for all at the 2nd annual Glassell Bark Community Block Party and Pet Rescue Adoption, sponsored in part by CD1 Councilmember Gil Cedillo. There'll be plenty of fun family festivities, including a watermelon eating contest, free professional family pet photos, free microchipping, free spay-neuter vouchers, low-cost vaccines, a doggy fashion show, human barking contests, live performances, and more. You can also enjoy live entertainment, local vendors, and food trucks. The block party takes place Saturday, June 9th from 12 to 3 p.m. at Glassell Park, located at 3750 Verdugo Road. For more, visit glassellbark.com. And that's a look at some things to do. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. I'm Yana Kane from all of us here at LA This Week. Thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
I keep the city's computers running and up to date.
I launched a website to 4 million Angelinos.
Our team created a program that pays 48,000 city employees.
I help LA residents access all the city has to offer.
I make TV shows that air on LA City View 35.
I set up a data center in Las Vegas so city systems could keep running in the event of an earthquake.
I survey, install, and service communication towers for thousands of police and firefighters.
I'm building a robot that tests police radios to make sure they're reliable.
And I program Amazon Alexa to help people access city services. Alexa, ask LA City, how do I pay for parking ticket?
For LA City, you can pay your ticket in one of 4 convenient ways.
Excellent. Cut, print, we're moving on. Hi, I'm Shane Woodson on the set of Cain and Abel here in Hollywood. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel. Okay, I need my actors back on set, back in position.
Good morning. Good morning. If everyone would please take their seats. If everyone would please take their seats. It's Tuesday, June 5th. Welcome to City Hall. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Madam Clerk, we do have a quorum. Would you call the roll?
Blumenfield, Bonin, Buscaina, Cedillo, Englander, Herstassen, Weiser, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rodriguez, Rue, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Martinez moves. Koretz seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Harris Dawson moves. Buscaino seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, today is Tuesday and time for the flag salute.
Okay, let's ask Ms. Rodriguez to lead us in our flag salute for today. If all would please rise in council chambers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Let's run through the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President, there is a request to continue item 20 to Friday, June 8th. And
So
additionally,
ordered.
thank you. And additionally, no action is required on item 21 today, inasmuch as the council will consider the matter as item 34 on the special agenda.
Okay. Continue.
Item 1 is an item notice for public hearing.
Do you have cards?
Yes, there is a card on the item.
Then continue.
Items 2 through 21 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Specials. I don't see. Mr. Koretz?
Call item number 4 special.
4 from Mr. Koretz. Let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, let's.
And-
I've been informed that item 9. So let's vote on reconsideration of item 9. And then I'll just set that aside. On 9, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate.
10 ayes.
Okay, continue.
And Mr. President, for the record, item 3 and 5, those ords will be held over 1 week unless reconsidered with 12 members present.
Thank you. Continue.
Items 22 through 31 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Do you have cards on these items?
Yes, there are cards on all items.
Okay, let's hold those and continue. Let's move on to the next section.
Items 32 and 33 are items scheduled for closed session. Would you like to hold those on the desk?
I'll defer to Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Both items 32 and 33 are matters that have been considered by Budget and Finance, which recommends approval of the City Attorney's recommendations for settlement. Those matters can both be taken up in open session unless members have questions or concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian. Madam Clerk, if you'd read those items, let's try to dispense with them now.
On item 32, in the case entitled Valerio Grupione versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend up to $12 million in settlement payable over fiscal years 2017-18, 2019-20, and 2020-21. And in item 33, in the cases entitled Joanna Boton versus the City of Los Angeles and Nancy Martinez and Jose Enrique Gutierrez versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend up to $2 million in settlement payable in fiscal year 2018-19.
Okay, let's prepare to vote on those items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, continue.
Mr. President, that takes council back to presentations, item called special or general public comment.
Ms. Rodriguez, would you like to start off with your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. I am really proud to be joined today by our, of course, wonderful General Manager of the Information Technology Agency and members of ITA, as well as Ted Ross, right? And his family, who has joined us here today, as well as Jim Slater with the LA Business Journal. And we're here today to celebrate a well-deserved recognition. I'm very proud of this recognition that Ted has received this honor as the Chief Information Officer of the Year by the LA Business Journal, which is a huge honor.
Congratulations.
While I was on the board of Public Works, I had a really great opportunity to work very closely with Ted as we were leading the overhaul of LA Bovin, which is really a pivotal piece of our procurement process for the city. And it was with Ted's partnership and leadership that we were able to do something and reform a system that hadn't been touched in over 18 years. And I think many of us know that when we work with the city, sometimes it can be a little difficult to help make sure that everyone's rowing in the same direction. And one of the greatest opportunities that I had to work with Ted was to make sure that we assembled a team that was dedicated and all rowing in the same direction. And as a result, we were able to deliver these reforms in just over 9 months' time, which I used to remark was in some ways quicker than I was able to deliver my son. It was really an example of the leadership that Ted brings to a very critical piece of what we do in the city, and that is to utilize technology in an effective way to help make sure that we are providing the most accessible and the most really time-efficient way of doing service delivery in the city. And I appreciate the work and the team that he's assembled. I want to thank his general manager, his assistant general managers who are also here, Laura Ito, Joyce Edson, and Anthony Moore, who have joined us as well, because it really does take this incredible team to help us make these great strides when it comes to what we are doing in information technology. And so I want to thank Ted and congratulate him for this, what I think is frankly the most well-deserved honor when I think about how this department has continued to evolve under your leadership and guidance. It really does take a strong leader to help assemble all the right members of the team to help make sure that we are making continued progress. And it is no surprise that some of the work that you have led has not just earned you this honor, but has continued to really reveal increasing opportunities for us as a city to invest in technology to help make our business practices much more effective. I know that the work that we started with LA Bovin has led to the continued evolution and reforms of our procurement system, which is going to make us a #1 city. And I know this is coming, and I know this is just a matter of time that we're going to continue to make these inroads. But I'm just incredibly proud that the LA Business Journal is recognizing you for something that I already knew about you, and that you are much deserving of this award and this recognition. And I'm really glad to be here in this chamber to be able to recognize you for your incredible work and leadership at this time. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Jim Slater, the ad manager for the LA Business Journal, for some remarks. Oh, there we go.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jim Slater. I'm with the Los Angeles Business Journal. For the past 12 years, the Business Journal has produced the CIO Awards. This is part of our initiative to recognize individuals and organizations that at times are not recognized for their hard work with their companies and for the community. This year, Ted Ross is awarded the Chief Information Officer of the Year by the Los Angeles Business Journal. As you know, Ted manages the LA Information Technology Agency and is very active outside of his responsibilities for the city. Ted was selected through an open nomination process that the Business Journal administrated. The nominations were vetted twice, once by the individuals on the committee, and secondly, as they met as a group. So the nominees were viewed and evaluated extensively. In the past years, this honor has gone to Steve Garsky He's Senior VP and CIO of Children's Hospital Los Angeles. Marilyn Gillette, Director of Information Technology Services for J. Paul Getty Trust. James Brady, the Area Chief Information Officer for Kaiser Permanente. As I'm sure you will agree, Ted is in an outstanding group. Again, congratulations to Ted, being selected as the CIO of the Year.
So at this time, colleagues, it's my great pleasure to bring up for some remarks our incredible general manager, who I think, and I want to thank all the members of ITA that are also here with us, because again, it really does take a great leader. But I think what's even more, even more important to acknowledge is that you've continued to engender the trust of the leadership of this city. And as a result, we've continued to make greater investments for the improvements that need to be made in technology. It is such a pivotal part of how we operate and function as a city. So I just, again, my deepest and sincerest congratulations to you on this well-deserved honor. And without any further ado, our incredible General Manager of ITA, Ted Ross.
Thank you.
All right, congratulations again, Ted, to you and your family.
Absolutely. So I'm a firm believer that nothing great is done by one person, but it's done by a group of people. And so I am absolutely humbled by this award. I didn't seek it. I wasn't pursuing it. And when I was nominated with other really great companies, there were no government agencies in the nominations and the finalists. So to be nominated and to win an award was really quite a surprise, and I really am very appreciative and thankful for it. But certainly I couldn't have done it, certainly without my wife, Kelly, my daughters, Rachel and Alicia. Those are the folks who have to put up with the long hours and Dad not always home and working to get all the good stuff done that Councilmember Rodriguez was talking about. And certainly done by the ITA team. I lead an organization, but it is an organization. We're 450 strong. And I'm always reminded of the fact when I come to council chambers that I see my staff over there in that corner. I've got my staff over there on that wall. Such is the nature of IT. We're behind the scenes. We're not there to be in the front of the limelight. We're there to make really good things happen, to make technology really work for all of you. I'm thankful for all of the ITA employees who work very quietly. We make a joke around ITA that how ITA is like the CIA. The good things we do, no one talks about, and the things that go wrong, everyone talks about. So we're very familiar with that, and that's the nature of our work, and we're proud of that. And so I am just so thankful for everyone and the work they do. I do accept this award on the behalf of them, and I'm so thankful to the leadership we have here at the city. Without your investments, without your leadership here in City Council from all of you, we wouldn't be getting anything done. We have made such tremendous strides in the last 5 or so years. I remember what the joke used to be when many of you were coming into office in 2013, how we were cutting edge 1984. And that's not who we want to be. And when you have a city with over 4 million people, they're engaging us through their devices. They're engaging us online and through permit desks and through websites and through mobile apps. And in so many ways, that's how they're connecting with us and through call centers. So delivering really good technology is delivering really good government. At least that's how we see it at ITA. And so I sincerely appreciate all of you and your leadership and the leadership of Mayor Eric Garcetti and our other elected officials. And I just thank you for just taking a moment just to recognize a great ITA team. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, congratulations.
So Ted, on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, thank you for outstanding work. And we look forward to the continued success of this department. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you.
Come on, back in.
Okay, members, I'm going to take some public comment for a bit here. So I'd like to call up Labani Sarsh Dar Mohammed Tassar, Zach Mohammed. Please come on up. Ishmael Allgood, just come on up. Are they not here? Please come up. If I've called your name, please come up now to the center aisle. If I've called you. Yes, sir. Your name?
Ishmael Marcus Allgood.
Okay, welcome, sir. Go right ahead. In fact, you know what, Mr. Allgood, why don't we wait 10 seconds? Let me get it a little more quiet for you. The floor is yours.
Greetings. My name is Ishmael Marcus Allgood of Isla, LA, in South Los Angeles on West Slauson Avenue. I was here on January the 10th to object to the CVE program. I object, and I still object. Isla, LA is asking council members to vote no on the mayor's DHS grant. I object. This program has, because they think we are beguiled or stupid or something, trying to hide surveilling Muslims as some sort of mental health service for the community, but it is called counter-violent extremism, not mental health therapy. The mental health is only at guys. The U.S. religion census estimated there are only 128,866 Muslims living in Los Angeles, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, and Ventura County. So what are they trying to say about... Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please. Yes, sir. Identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Zach Mohammed, and I'm with the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. As a Black Muslim refugee from Somalia, I have learned to live and accept and be unapologetic of all my intersecting identities. One thing I've learned to live since 2001 is if I'm not being called the N-word, I'm being called a terrorist, and vice versa. This is something that still happens in 2018, something that many of you elected officials may not understand. This is not to perpetuate oppression Olympics. This is to get the reality that we are being under attack. Because of programs like CVE, this is my reality, and this has been the reality of so many countless people in the last century who have been attacked and ridiculed by the state solely based on their identities, from COINTELPRO to right now, because of the white supremacy that we know. CVE is something that the city of Los Angeles does not need. The $400,000 from Trump DHS is not only a target on Angelenos, but has impacts on emboldening white supremacists. As city of Los Angeles touts itself as a welcoming, this is not welcoming at all.
Thank you, and Zach, good to see you. Next.
Good morning. My name is Mohammed Tadsar, and I'm a staff attorney at the ACLU of Southern California. The ACLU of Southern California is committed to protecting the civil and human rights of all individuals, including the rights to free speech, religious liberty, and to combat economic equality and racism in Southern California. Consistent with those commitments, the ACLU joins with a group of Muslim organizations and non-Muslim activists that are here present today to call on the City Council to reject a forthcoming vote to accept funds from the Department of Homeland Security designed to do what it considers to be countering violent extremism. The ACLU believes that this program violates fundamental principles of free expression, free exercise, and religious liberty. It is premised on the flawed assumption that certain indicators and actions that individuals conduct are likely to predict incidents of violent extremism, and those are fundamentally.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker. Start all over. So give her time. Identify yourself.
I'm Sarah with the California Immigrant Policy Center, and I'm a constituent of Councilmember O'Farrell.
The mayor's office has defended the current iteration of the CVE program as a new improved quote-unquote public health model that is an alternative to quote-unquote heavy-handed law enforcement techniques. However, I hold a master's in public health, and anyone familiar with the fundamentals of the field will see why it's completely inappropriate to use that term for this proposal. In public health, epidemiologists start by systematically gathering and analyzing data regarding a threat to the health or well-being of a population. Sometimes this is called conducting a needs assessment. In order to claim that this CVE program is public health, practitioners would have to first identify and clearly define the parameters of the problem. They need to analyze data such as the number and frequency of violent extremism-related behaviors, injuries, or deaths that have occurred in a given amount of time, who the victims and perpetrators are, within what geographic area the incidents are most highly concentrated, etc. The mayor's office has demonstrated no such evidence that a public health problem exists in the first place. Instead, the funds are premised on a completely unsubstantiated hypothetical possibility that some people might commit acts of violent extremism.
So is Labani, Samantha, Aaron Sordoff, Lance Tango, Kanji Sahara. Please come forward. Kafan Shah. Yes, identify yourself.
Samantha. Good morning. My name is Samantha.
Samantha, let's start all over.
Okay.
Say your last name.
Hi, my name is Samantha Arnsdorf, and I'm here to represent the National Association of Social Workers USC unit. The NASW is a national organization with over 120,000 members that works to empower social service professionals as well as provide resources for the clients we serve. Today we are here in opposition of accepting the Countering Violent Extremism grant. The funds acquired from the Department of Homeland Security are detrimental to our work and breaks Ethical Code 1.03, Informed Consent of the Client, and Ethical Code 5.01, Integrity of the Profession. Utilizing the government's list of quote-unquote terrorism indicators works to target specific Muslim members of our community. Additionally, there is no plan for the dissemination of funds. The public and all agents of human service programs in Los Angeles have a right to know where and how the money will be used. We are urging City Council to consider the many negative effects of the program that targets the parents of the children we serve, the families we fight to protect, and the communities who cannot advocate for themselves. I thank you for your time and urge your consideration.
Thank you. And if I could get Kathy Masaoka, Aaron Riley, identify yourself, sir, and welcome.
Thank you. My name is Lance Tango, and I'm here today as a licensed mental health professional to recommend to the City Council to reject any grants associated with countering violent extremism programs. People seek out therapy in their most vulnerable moments. They trust that therapists will listen to their private confessions in a manner that is helpful to them, not hurtful. CVE programs exploit this trust. Provisions outlined by CVE nullify the privacy rights of therapy patients. This is in opposition to the ethical and legal standards of confidentiality that providers like me are expected to uphold every day. CVE programs create a conflict of interest for mental health providers like myself, putting at greatest risk for harm the communities who turn to us for help. In the midst of this political climate of hostility and suspicion, I don't want the mental health field to become a source of betrayal to the Muslim American community. I'm asking the members of this council to reject any grants associated with the CVE programming.
Identify yourself and welcome.
Hi, my name is Seher Pirzada, and I am a resident of Koreatown in Los Angeles, a Muslim woman, a mental health professional, a student at USC, and as a constituent, I am here today asking my elected officials to listen to my voice and vote no on approving the mayor's CVE grant of $425,000. The mayor claims that his program is effective, yet he has not even developed the MOUs for his subgrantees, nor has he figured out what indicators they're going to be using for identifying folks on a path to radical extremism. I don't exactly know what you would be voting on if you were to vote yes on approving his grant. We're asking all of our elected officials to listen to our voices. Last month was the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, and I ask you to really honor voices and those who are impacted by Islamophobia today by voting no on his grant. In the mayor's office fact sheet about CVE and its meetings, the office has not cited any evidence to prove its effectiveness and has failed to provide documentation of any independent analysis.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, and I'm looking for Anthony Robles. Anthony Robles. So, whoever's next, but I'm just adding Anthony to the line here. Yes, identify yourself.
Good morning. My name is Kifa Shah, and I am a campaign manager at Empower Change, the largest digital grassroots organization in the country. And today I'm here to submit more than 1,000 signatures from your constituents who are urging you to stop CVE. The Countering Violent Extremism program operates under the guise of community-led efforts to prevent violent extremism, but ends up targeting and criminalizing Muslims specifically. That's why the vast majority of local Muslim organizations that are represented here today were not consulted when creating and implementing this program. If they had been, the LA City Council would have heard the concerns that we have about CVE and how it singles out Muslims for surveillance and scrutiny, breeds mistrust within the community, and as we all know, this type of violence is not exclusive to Muslim communities. LA City Council should be taking cues from the communities that will be impacted by this program, who are standing before you today and who are in the more than 1,000 petition signers that I will submit to you. We urge that in the next coming weeks.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Aaron Riley. I'm with CannaSafe. We're a cannabis testing laboratory located in Los Angeles. I'm urging City Council to include an urgency clause in the changes to the cannabis regulations. Currently, there's no licensed cannabis testing facility in Los Angeles, and if it doesn't happen before July 1, there could be public health concerns because there's a lot of contaminated cannabis products out on the market, and there's currently nowhere in Los Angeles to get it tested. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Tiara Solahern, also with CannaSafe LA. Basically, there are a lot of contaminated substances out there, and for those that are using them for medical use, we would like to also urge that everything is regulated so that we are able to provide the testing services for everyone.
Thank you. Next speaker, please identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Kanji Sahara. During World War II, people of Japanese ancestry were incarcerated in camp. As an 8-year-old boy, I was interned in Santa Anita and then Jerome, Arkansas. While in camp, all adults were required to answer the loyalty questionnaire. The purpose of the questionnaire was to separate the loyal from the disloyal. I want to cite a few of the 28 questions. Answers were given a positive or negative score. Positive score was good and a negative score was bad. Question 8. If his spouse is a citizen of Japan, 1-. If his spouse is a citizen of US, 1+. Question 18. If his subject was a fisherman, 2-. If subject was employed by American business, 2+. Question 16. If his subject is Buddhist, 1-. If his subject is Christian, 2+. Question 19. If his subject is an instructor in Japanese sports, 2-. If his subject is instructor in American sports, 2+. The loyalty questionnaire did not catch any spies because it did not measure whether a person would betray America. The questionnaire measured...
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please identify yourself.
Anthony Robles.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Anthony Robles on behalf of the Youth Justice Coalition. We strongly object CVE. This program unfairly criminalizes and surveils Muslim communities, similar to the way that it does on black and brown communities with gang injunctions and gang database and other gang suppression tactics. For example, I was pulled over by the police once, and I was targeted they put me down as a gang affiliate because I was hanging out with somebody else who was a gang affiliate, which made me about 3 degrees removed from an actual gang. CVE will cast a wide dragnet to criminalize people, to criminalize Muslims. We strongly object. And it took 4 decades to start to dismantle gang suppression tactics with the bills that we helped pass, AB 90, 3 bills that we helped pass, and a lawsuit that we won recently against the city of Los Angeles, who unfairly and unconstitutionally put people on gang databases and gang injunctions. So we strongly oppose the CVE program.
Thank you. John V. Sobers or Sombers, Michelle McKinney, Daniel Solomon. Yanve Sobers, Michelle McKinney, Danielle Solomon, please come forward. Identify yourself.
Good morning. My name is Laboni Hawk from Asian Americans Advancing.
Start all over.
Good morning. My name is Laboni Hawk from Asian Americans Advancing Justice.
Wait again. We're disrupting the speaker. Okay, then let's sit down. We'll take care of that. You sit down. We'll take care of that. Sit down. We'll take care of that. Just sit down. We'll take care of that. Come on. Let's let the other person speak here. Let's let the other person speak. Come on. Let's let her testify. I'll be calling you, and you'll get your chance to testify. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Council President. For the third time, just in case you didn't catch it, Laboni Hawk from Asian Americans Advancing Justice.
Good to see you.
I'm here to speak on the issue of CVE. I've had the real pleasure to meet with a lot of you and a lot of your staff on this issue, and we appreciate the time you've given us to do that. For those of you who we haven't spoken to, we would love to. I think we have some requests outstanding, so we look forward to that. But from a broader perspective, we are here with our coalition to encourage you to vote no on the mayor's CVE grant. We have laid out for you a number of reasons why we think it's a real problem for the city in this particular time of Islamophobia and all the negative policies coming down from the Trump administration to accept this policy. You know, we appreciate that it's not an easy issue, and I have very limited time here to speak, so we do encourage you to look more deeply into that issue before you take a position, but we do encourage you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. And before you speak, we have absolutely no problems with filming. We just don't allow people to film from the center aisle. So the young man was asked to go to my left, and he's still being afforded the opportunity to film. But he was asked, he is moved. Now back to you.
Good morning, sir. My name is Michelle McKinney, and I am a prospective social equity applicant. My grandparents migrated in the second migration in the 40s, and I have over 100 years history here in California. And as a prospective candidate with their family's life savings at stake, and as we juggle our budgets to simply hold on to this opportunity, our property, our lives are hanging precariously in the balance with fears of pay-to-play schemes, sharks, and offers to purchase our status. We need more opportunity to address our concerns and questions and have a voice on your committees. With the help of California Minority Alliance, we are almost ready for licensing, but our agendas are not being heard as prospective candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good morning, sir. My name is Jan V. Sobers. I'm also a prospective social equity applicant. I've just returned from New York University after having obtained my bachelor's degree in political science and economics. And I'm here in this city, the greatest city in the world, from the second greatest city in the world, to invest my entire future, my family's life savings, and my family home into this opportunity. And I want to start a cannabis distribution service right here in this city. And the frustration I have had has not been because of my youth. I haven't had any challenges dealing with people as a young person. The challenges I have been because of a lack of transparency and a lack of flows of information directly from City Council and from the city government to social equity applicants such as myself. We are desperate for information. We are desperate for this opportunity, and we need the resources and the support that City Council has to offer, as well as a seat at the table, like the previous commenter mentioned. And the seat at the table should be afforded to young people as well. And that's, I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Cool. Good morning. My name is Daniel Solomon. I stand with students, families, teachers, and concerned community members, including the Palestinian Youth Movement, Stop LAPD Spying Coalition, Immigrant Youth Coalition, Jewish Voices for Peace, United Teachers of LA, the Black Student Union, in completely rejecting the city's participation in the Countering Violent Extremism program because it is a part of a long history of criminalization of black and brown youth. It does not make our communities safe. It is pouring money into programs that target our communities instead of investing that money in programs that empower youth and our communities. CVE grants money criminalizes our spiritual practices and freedom of speech and expression. CVE implies that Muslim, black, and brown communities themselves are a risk, which plays into racist stereotypes and justifies increased criminalization. The City of Los Angeles, Mayor's Office of Public Speaking, was awarded $400,000 for training and engagement and $425,000 for...
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Masaoka. As a retired educator for the LA Unified School District and co-chair of a group called Nikkei for Civil Rights and Redress, a group that fought for justice for the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II, we know how slippery the slope is to violating the rights of people and how easily constitutional rights can be violated, not just for individuals, but for whole groups of people. I oppose the Countering Violent Extremism program that is before the City Council today. It is too easy for a program like this to surveil people, especially one that is under the Department of Homeland Security. Japanese Americans were mapped before World War II and forced to register to the government. My grandfather was easily picked up by the FBI. We have learned from this history. We opposed the mapping, the LAPD mapping of the community, the Muslim community after 9/11. We opposed the special registration, and we continue to oppose the Countering Violent Extremism program. Thank you.
Okay, you know what, madam? We're going to just hold off for a minute on the public comment. We have 12 members. Why don't we reconsider those items? If you could identify them, please.
That would be item 3 and item 5 to be reconsidered for ordinances.
Okay, let's vote on reconsideration. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Now let's actually vote on those items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, now I'm going to jump into our multi-section, and I'm going to call up Mr. Previn. Mr. Previn, you have items 1, 4, 9, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. And your general public comment. So give him his minutes, and then we'll end with his public comment.
Good morning, sir. It's Eric Previn from CD2, and disclosure, I'm running for 3rd District Supervisor, so thank you. Sir, a lot of preferential parking districts coming up in Bonan's district, and obviously Buscaino is running large in the oversized vehicles, but you have a homeless crisis, sir, so you need to work on your safer parking program. That's where we need the attention, because there's people who are trying, and a lot of the folks today with the equity program who you're trying to restore, who were wounded by the war on drugs, are some of the people out there who are looking to get back into this, to get some job, find a place, and they may need to, park it at night someplace. So we got to find a way. I know you're not working on it, but I know you're thinking about working on it, and I know you're settling big lawsuits, and that was a heartbreaker.
Mr.
The 12
President,
million.
Yeah, go ahead.
Public hearing has already been held on those items.
Okay, so if you could slide back, Mr. Previn,
Sure,
into
I'm
the
sliding
items
right
that I identified for you.
Sliding right back, sir. 27 obviously caught my attention. Now, I'm a fair and square guy, so even though I'm on the left, like you, sir, when I see items like 27 where, I don't know who came up with this may be Cedillo or whatever, but it's anybody who's got a proposal or a contract to work on, the commander-in-chief in Washington's wall, is supposed to come up to you guys and say, oh, I'm disclosing that right now, so can I get a job? Now, that's like Trump's stupid idea about, you can't protest in a football stadium. It's just, it creates a weird energy. So I don't like it when you do that, sir. I don't want a wall, and but I think going around making people testify whether or not they are doing business in any way connected to that wall is just an insane way to go. I mean, it's like you don't seem to care that you got the big, thumb on the scale. So get the thumb off the scale, and let's be fair and square. We can pick companies and do our own research without causing them to do that kind of thing. Now, you got a whole bunch of lighting districts, and I made a little study because Krikorian and I and CD2 are putting up a few. We got one on Troost and Woodbridge and one on, I think it's Burbank and Whitsett, but they're widely different in pricing. So that must be where the play is. And these are coming up at an alarming rate, so I don't know exactly what's going on there. Now, in terms of the units that you guys are pumping out, congratulations. You've got 436 unit multifamily at item 30, 99 unit multifamily at 31, 29 is 157 affordable unit, but you're spending $600 over on the El Pueblo parking lot for your homeless folk. So I don't know. I feel like we have to find a way to put people, undercover. I mean, we're going to have to find a way, and then when the heat comes in this summer, it's going to be bad. I know we were excited about the 5% rollback that we were all expecting. Since we've spent so much money, we're doing a little better with the problem. But I'm hoping that, sir, the Korean American Museum item you got in there today at item 19 is a beauty. I know you greased those guys up years ago, and let's say thanks to Koretz and Krikorian.
Thank you. Now go into your general public comment. Give him this minute. Go ahead, Mr. Previn.
My general public comment, I want to say for Englander, I know he's not here, but he's got a smart boot program. Now, he is so proud of this. He was up there bragging about how he's got over 10,000 smart boots since August 2017. That's an old number because they don't want to talk about it out loud when they found out we're paying attention. Now he wants to jack up the fees on that. Now, how can you be proposing these kind of social equity programs for the cannabis folks who are down here today while you're going around nailing people one after the other for parking violations? I almost got knocked over by a woman today who was running down to the mall to fight her little parking ticket before she goes to work. Please, sir, you got to do something a little bit different and get out there and vote, sir. I know it's hard when you've been running the place for a long time, but get out there and pull the lever for Eric Previn, 3rd District Supervisor. And thanks for your time. Have a good one.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Okay, let's vote on items 23 through 26. So if you'd open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
We can also vote on item 1. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, now I want to deal with items 4 and 9. Can you pull up on my screen folk that are here to comment on that?
And Mr. President, for the record, on items 4 and 9, amending motions have been posted and submitted and circulated for council's consideration.
Okay, so let's start off with general public comment. Then I'm going to call our director to come up and give us a overview of what's going on and answer questions if need be. But let me start off with Tyrone Freeman, Fanny Guzman, Alexis D'Angelo. Please come forward, and followed by Felicia Carbajal. Yes, Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. On behalf of the California Minority Alliance, CMA, today we rise in support of this before you today, assuming that the amendments don't significantly change what has been placed and printed before us. Specifically, Mr. Chairman and members of the council, we'd like to highlight some particular issues. Most importantly, allowing social equity applicants to move forward with this process without the land use authorization is a plus and a move in the right direction. We believe that is formidable and allows for the engagement of those most impacted by the industry to engage in it. Secondly, we support the tax reduction and the initiative that's proposed as well on item number 7 to allow for the income raised on such actions on the ballot from the Reinvestment Trust Fund. And I want to close by saying that it is most important to remember that we've committed the resources and asked the council to commit the resources to the social equity program. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Identify yourself.
Hi, good morning, Council. My name is Fanny Guzman.
Welcome.
I am here representing Latinos for Cannabis as 51% of Los Angeles. I feel that it is very important that you hear our voices. A lot of us are working communities, and therefore we don't have the privilege to come and speak to you today. but there is a dire need to make licensing accessible and attainable by minorities, giving us an opportunity to become legitimate stakeholders, building equity and benefiting from the economic empowerment made possible through this burgeoning industry. And I am here to also support, to provide a process and allow the DCR to license incubator projects with multiple licenses for the education, training, et cetera, for social equity applicants, as well as allow social equity applicants to apply who do not have local land use, which is a major barrier to entry.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, and I'm also looking for Alejandra Mataquin and Nick Pacheco, and then Sherry Franklin. Yes, welcome.
Hi, I'm Alexis D'Angelo from the California Cannabis Industry Association, and we're in support of opening up the social equity, especially in the Valley and other areas, as well as offering temporary licensing for lab testing facilities, and anything that has to do with moving forward the agenda of authorizing licensing in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, identify yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Felicia Carbajal. I'm an intersectional Latinx organizer, activist, and voting constituent of CD4. As an activist with decades of experience in the Latino community, LGBT community, the medical marijuana movement, and criminal justice reform, I am standing here for members of the Latino community, queer community, immigrant, and prison reform community whose voices will never be heard. We are here to reclaim the conversation about social equity as it relates to the legalization of cannabis. This is a conversation about radical social change. First off, I want to thank all of the city council members for getting us this far. I'm here to remind the Latino elected officials that are sitting here, the Valley representatives, and any who connect with the basic idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We need you. We need you now more than ever as Latino elected officials to ensure that the Valley is not only included, but that our people are empowered.
Thank you. Next, identify yourself.
Good morning, esteemed members of the City Council. My name is Alejandra Marroquin. I am here representing First 5 LA. As the Council reviews this item and future decisions, we ask that children and youth be considered and prioritized in your reviews, as there is projected funding that will be coming through via future cannabis revenues. First 5 LA asks that future language include the importance of lifting children and youth investments for the community. We recommend in particular that future funding, including cannabis revenues, ensure that any funds spent on youth development target children from 0 to 24, not just older children, and should be targeted for education and youth development. Additionally, our recommendation is to include language that provides a more equitable distribution of revenues so that organizations providing children and youth services have a shot at funding that can then have long-term impact on these populations. By including funding for children and youth in your budget priorities, the City of LA has a unique opportunity to rebuild many children's lives, strengthen former inmates' families, as well as bolster their employment capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Franklin, followed by Mr. Pacheco, followed by Virgil, and followed by Donnie Anderson. Yes.
Good afternoon, Sheree Franklin, Think and Grow Lab. One, thank you so much, Council President and the Council Office, and of course the vision of Ms. Kat Packer. I just wanted to say that we have a strong network in Los Angeles of community-based organizations and intermediaries who can come to the table and assist with developing the Social Equity Fund. We have lots of resources that we could pull in at the city, and I would like to see how we can come together in a collaborative approach to help so that we can move the process forward. We certainly support the idea for the incubator. Think and Grow Lab is creating an incubator lab in South Los Angeles, and we welcome all other people who are creating one to partner with us because we think that it's going to take partnerships to make this happen. But please, let's pull together. Let's pull our banking entities, our nonprofits, our investors, our community development corporations, come together in a round table and go after funding for health and social equity and for economic development and public benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pacheco. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Good morning, council members. I first want to commend you for
not following the traditional model when it comes to cannabis. What I've learned in the last year is that traditionally the industry is an oligopoly. An oligopoly meaning that few people are going to run the industry. Issuing 380 licenses and limiting people to 3 is not going to have that end result. We're going to have active participation by many people. So I take very much, not only personal, but community offense when I see someone like MedMen try to get around the rules, use DBAs, have 6 locations, 4 of them being nonprofits, and not give back anything to the community. You know, that's a huge problem for me. They went public last week, raised $100 million, and according to an article in the Canadian newspapers, the co-founders are going to walk away with $26.5 million off the top. So I've already asked them for $5.3 million on Twitter for any agency that works with immigrants, because this whole prohibition started with racism towards Mexicans in the 1930s, and without that prohibition, there wouldn't be this boom. So that's how I connected.
Thank you.
So,
good to see you.
good to see you.
Mr. Grant?
Good morning, Council President and Council. My name is Virgil Grant, co-founder of California Minority Alliance. I stand here in support of the proposed amendments here, and just like to thank you, Council President and body, for your tireless work on this social equity program, Proposition M, and ordinance. Just a few things I would request is to start issuing out the letter for the $20,000 a day fine for rogue shops, as well as the landlords that lease to them, and as well as we need to deliver on our promise with Proposition M to the community of cleaning it up with rogue shops. So let's see if we can get to that. And we also support the AB 2980 shared space as CMA has helped sponsor that bill. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Good morning. Thank you for hearing us today. I want to make sure that the funds get back to the schools from cannabis, but I want to make sure that we put it back in the vocational for high schools, giving them trades and skills like I had when I was in high school. We need to get that back to the community so they can come out getting jobs instead of having a basketball or a baseball. We want to make sure that we're standing to our word on with Measure M. Our community is really ravished right now by rogue dispensaries. Staying open to 1 and 2 in the morning and having shootouts is an issue. My mother has complained many a time in District 8 about this, and we still haven't had enough prosecution. So we need to get to what we voted on Measure M. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I could get O, is there someone fill out a card named O and Arnie? Arnie A? Yes, sir. Welcome.
How's it going? My name is O. I'm here on behalf of Latinos for Cannabis. I'm here to support all the amendments for the social equity program, but that's really just the beginning, because right now the social equity program is really an illusion of inclusion. There's too many barriers, a lot of them being financial. What's going to happen, which I don't know if you guys are aware, the giant corporations are going to flood this market, and if you compare it to something like craft beer, it's going to be a lot of Bud Light, all the smaller craft cannabises, which our community are trying to pool our money together to even try to survive. It's very uneven, very unequal. So this is just the beginning, really, the way I look at it, the way I feel, because it's all money. It's all money at the end of the day, and we don't have that. And even with the social equity program, you can't even get a license without having the land for it and having to wait all those months, paying all that rent. Like the lady said, they're pulling all their family resources together, all their life savings to try to have some type of economic development in communities that have been targeted by the drug war.
Thanks, O. Arnie?
Good morning, Council. Good morning, Council President. I'm Arnie Abramian, Los Angeles Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, also Empower Angelino's nonprofit. From the cannabis chamber aspect, I would love the enforcement and closing down of the road shops, because that's killing us from the tax perspective to our communities and quality of life. From the Empower Angelinos aspect, I would like to ask the council to show this respect and courtesy towards the pregnant mothers and grandmothers of the individuals that are operating those road shops, because the ladies don't have a say if their husband or, sons are in this industry. Everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie. We're being left behind by big corporations moving in, and all they care about is their stock options and making a profit on Angelino's bags. Thank you, and love you guys.
Thank you, man. Mike and Gary.
Good morning, council members. My name is Mike O'Gara. I've lived in Sun Valley for 45 years. I want to talk on 9. Our councilwoman was nice enough. I see you've revised some of it. The big thing here is cutting back on the amount of money that these people are going to pay taxes, which is item 2 within the. We need that money for enforcement. Cannabis businesses have been legal since the 1st of January. We're 6 months into it. We have 7 illegal places in Sun Valley. There's no movement to put them out of business. We got 4 legal places. These guys have invested a lot of money in their business, and they're losing money. The illegal places are selling it for 20% less than they can do, and they need help. As far as advertising, which is the other item, please, we got billboards. They're full of cannabis ads. Limit the number of billboards that one business can have in one neighborhood council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Gary Agus. Gary, come on.
Good morning, council members. I'd like to speak on item 9, particularly number 1, regarding the newly created Reinvestment Trust Fund. I believe it should change to read 3 miles as opposed to the original half mile and I guess the more recent 1 mile radius of any licensed cannabis business for various public improvements. Also, if money is unspent after 5 years, it should be used anywhere in the neighborhood council in which the licensed cannabis business is located, because that is the area that is most impacted by the business. Other than that, I think the Reinvestment Trust Fund is a great idea. I'm really happy that you're going through with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michelle McKinney. Yes.
Good morning again, Council. On the amendments to local land use and shared space, it would have saved our family a lot. We sold our family home in order to meet the requisite M2 property guidelines for licensing. And it's an excellent example of the need to engage more intimately with prospective social equity candidates about their needs. As it relates to health benefits and community benefits programming funds, I'm in support of that for education and outreach and public services, but I caution you, Council, to be as bold as you were innovative in even tackling the task of the social equity, that you don't buy into programs like DARE and other things that will actually alienate our youth in the community. We would like a voice in community engagement and how you use these resources to strengthen our image and our connectivity. Now our images are contingent upon a disproportionate number of
Thank you. Okay, so that ends public comment on these few items. I'd like to ask Ms. Packard to come forward. I'd like to ask the city attorney's office to come forward. And before we start, City Attorney, maybe you could just give us the skinny on what's going on with the shutdown of these non-licensed facility, what the game plan is, and that, because we've had several questions about that, and we did make a commitment to the voters of this district to try to close down all of the illegal shops. So before we get into Ms. Packard's review, why don't you bring us up to speed?
Good morning, council members. David Michelson with the Office of the City Attorney. With me here today is my colleague, Alex Friedman. Be pleased to answer your question. As I think most folks understand, the Department of Cannabis Regulation is involved with the regulatory scheme, the licensing scheme with respect to cannabis businesses in the city. They are not involved on the law enforcement end when folks who are operating unlicensed businesses. That role really falls to the law enforcement side of the city family. It includes the Los Angeles Police Department, includes prosecutors in the city attorney's office, at times the LAPD, the LAFD, and the Department of Building and Safety have a role to play as well. There's been a fair amount of activity relatively recently with respect to paying attention to those businesses who are unlicensed. Our office is working in partnership certainly with the LAPD. We have been filing approximately 2 criminal cases every day against businesses who are not in possession of a license as required by the state of California and by the city of Los Angeles. So with that partnership between LAPD and our prosecutors, we continue to proceed at that pace and providing that kind of attention, because it is very important to make sure that folks understand if they're going to be involved in cannabis business in the city of Los Angeles, they need to have a license from the state of California and from the city of Los Angeles. And if they don't, they will get the attention clearly of the law enforcement side of the city.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Ms. Packard, you want to just review what is before this body?
Absolutely. And thank you, Council President and City Council, for the opportunity to address and share information relative to the development and implementation of the city's first-in-time cannabis regulatory program. Important to note again that less than 6 months ago, the City of Los Angeles expressly prohibited commercial cannabis activity, but gave limited immunity from prosecution to certain operators who had been compliant with past policies. California law under Proposition 64 and our local Measure M now allow both the state of California and the city of Los Angeles to license and regulate commercial cannabis activity. To license and regulate this activity, this council has taken a number of steps to allow the department and the commission to begin that process. Our local ordinances specifically designated that the department was to give priority in the processing of applications for our existing medical marijuana dispensaries, and I will kick it over to Jason Killeen to share information about that priority processing.
Good morning, Jason Killeen, Department of City Planning. To date, the department has reviewed applications associated with 516 applicants. The department has issued 928 temporary licenses, 464 for adult use, 464 for medical use, to 147 locations throughout the city. The department has also issued an additional 16 invoices to applicants. Once those applicants have paid those invoices, we anticipate that our number should rise to about 163. At the end of the day, once phase 1 closes, we think that we could have up to 180 businesses. That's the update.
All right. Thank you, Jason. I'd also like to share that there are a number of other developments that the Department of Cannabis Regulation has been coordinating throughout the city to move the city forward in this conversation. First and foremost, we've been engaging with a number of stakeholders, community members, neighborhood councils to elevate conversations, because part of what we've recognized over the course of the last several months and part of what has been apparent to this city council and community members is that cannabis and cannabis policy is extremely impactful, and the decisions that we make today are going to be extremely important for the city of Los Angeles moving forward. The department had the opportunity to share information and coordinate with other jurisdictions that have social equity programs. We've been engaged in conversations with the city of Oakland, San Francisco, Sacramento, and the state of California. And I've been excited to see the city of Los Angeles lead this conversation. There are so many other jurisdictions throughout the state of California and even throughout the United States that are watching the city of Los Angeles as we move this conversation forward. As folks are having conversations about the furthering of cannabis policy, we're often using the rhetoric of the drug war and talking about how communities have been impacted, but it's important to go beyond that rhetoric and to make sure that there are actually programs and funding being dedicated to make sure that folks have equity, not just in economic opportunities, but in health and employment opportunities and education. The ways that cannabis policy has impacted communities needs to be addressed as we move forward. So although the department has been focusing its conversations on licensing, because we are the entity in the city that is responsible for licensing, and that obviously has impacts to economic opportunity via employment and ownership opportunity, we are excited about the opportunity to address this city council to expand what equity is going to mean for the city of Los Angeles. Because if we expand what equity means for the city of Los Angeles, we know that we'll expand what equity means for the United States. So I am appreciative of this opportunity. A lot of what is before us today allows the department to move forward with our next phase of licensing. And important to note that we are, again, just beginning this conversation. We are less than 6 months into the implementation of adult use sales. The state of California has just is in the process of readopting their emergency rules, so we understand that this conversation is fluid. This conversation is continuing around the state. And as we continue to move forward with policy across the state, it's important that the city of Los Angeles have the flexibility to move forward and take all of the stakeholders' public comment into consideration. Namely, there are changes here, amendments here that are being considered that would allow the department to move forward with phase 2. As we've engaged with stakeholders, there have been a number of conversations specifically related to community members' concerns, folks having access, and I want to address some of the delays in our licensing process. I think first and foremost, I think we were very ambitious to think that the department would be able to end and close phase 2 prior to April 1st, 2018. I think that we saw very early on that there was a lot of infrastructure that still needed to be developed and funded in the city in order for us to move that conversation forward, and I want to thank members of the Budget and Finance Committee for engaging in those conversations, and the Mayor's Office and the CAO's Office for supporting the department as we continue to move forward with these conversations. But we've been building infrastructure and working with City Council to recommend amendments that will allow us to be thoughtful in how we move forward. I'll actually kick it over to a city attorney to share specifics about what's in the Cannabis Reinvestment Act and some of the amendments that are before us, and then I'd like to have the mic again to share what that means for the city.
Good morning, council members. Alex Friedman, Deputy City Attorney. In the draft ordinance before you this morning, for item number 4, there's a series of amendments throughout the ordinance and the implementing rules and regulations. I'll just briefly summarize them and happy to answer any questions you might have about them. So the amendments will expand the reasons a person may be ineligible to apply for a license for violent felonies, for extending the period from 5 years to 20 years. It would remove the obligation to obtain a delivery license. So currently, under the change, a retailer doesn't have to get a separate license for delivery. It would permit an applicant or a licensee to enter into a tax payment plan with the Office of Finance so that DCR could process its application. It would modify the application period to allow DCR to reopen phase 2, which is currently closed as of April 1st of this year. It would allow DCR to issue temporary approvals to testing labs so they can begin operating and testing cannabis before full licensure. And it would revise the zone requirements for the existing medical marijuana dispensaries so that after 2022, they have to comply with the zone requirements of Proposition D. And finally, it would change the testing requirements, the dates by which cannabis has to be tested for various substances to be in complete alignment with state law. Do you have the reinvestment? Do you want me to go through the ballot measure?
Before City Attorney goes through the ballot measure, I want to take a moment to comment on some of the what's included in the motion. Here we have the ability for the department to register incubator projects. That is going to be extremely important. We've also added the Type S license that would allow for shared facilities for manufacturing facilities, and that's going to be important for the social equity program as well. It was mentioned by community stakeholders that the ability for social equity applicants essentially to be verified as social equity applicants prior to them identifying a premises or having site control is important. There are amendments contained herein that allow the department to do that. Important to note as well that the city and the department are looking forward to beginning to accept applications for testing facilities. We understand the importance of making sure that there are products that are tested within the city. Also, there are changes that are being considered here that would allow the department to require specific assistance via Tier 3 and Tier 2 social equity applicants. So we want to continue to build infrastructure around the support that social equity applicants would need. And I think I'll pass it over to City Attorney to share information about the Cannabis Reinvestment Act. Thank you.
Harith?
Good morning. Harith Trivedi from the City Attorney's Office. Item 9 is a proposed ballot measure. A motion instructing our office to come back with the resolutions and ordinance is for a proposed ballot measure that would impose various taxes and fees on cannabis activity with funds designated for specific appropriations. Very briefly, I'll go over what the motion proposes, which is a 1% special gross receipts tax on all cannabis activity to be placed into the Cannabis Reinvestment Trust Fund, with funds allocated for public improvements and other programs within a 1-mile radius of existing licensed cannabis businesses, and funds also going to the Department of Cannabis Regulation for public education outreach and other cannabis-related programming, and to a Cannabis Youth Prevention Child Strengthening Program. Also, there'll be a $5 surcharge that's proposed on any test of cannabis products and the funds going to a Cannabis Reinvestment Trust Fund, again, for cannabis science, technology, engineering, math, and education programming. A $5 surcharge on any tickets sold for a temporary cannabis event, with funds going to the trust fund for, again, expenditures on public education, outreach, and other cannabis-related programming. And finally, a 1% special gross receipts tax on licensed cannabis event organizers and registered cannabis management companies, with funds also specially designated. The motion also requests that the ballot measure include a required report, a corporate responsibility policy report from businesses. And then as a second item, it's asking for office to come back with an ordinance effective 2020 with some reductions in the general taxes applicable to various commercial and medical cannabis activity that were part of Measure M, and so that would be a second track. We'll be working with CAO and the department and council staff as we develop these documents for your review, and we'll bring them back by June 15th.
Thank you.
The other note that I want to make on the Cannabis Reinvestment Trust Fund is that largely what's being considered to be funded through this specific measure is exactly what the department outlined in our response and letter to the Budget and Finance Committee. We had shared that the Department of Cannabis Regulation had been moving forward to build out infrastructure relative to our licensing and regulatory responsibilities, but that there were 3 areas that were still currently being developed and that would need further funding. And so we understand that this is a direct response to that request, and so we appreciate that. Those 3 specific areas that we designated that needed additional policy development and funding and still continue to be worked on throughout the city are enforcement, the social equity program, and a public information and outreach program. Relative to the enforcement conversation, although the Department of Cannabis Regulation does not currently have the authority to enforce against unauthorized cannabis businesses, we have been working with a number of stakeholders across the city and state at this point to coordinate and develop the city's enforcement strategy, and so we appreciate the work that LAPD and City Attorney have done up to this point. There are a number of other folks, LAFD, Building and Safety, who have participated in this conversation. Also want to thank the mayor. He has intentionally gathered folks over the course of the last several months to discuss and move forward this enforcement conversation. Furthermore, around this social equity program, I appreciate that the funding allows the department the flexibility to designate funding for outreach, for expungement clinics. I think that as we continue to move these conversations forward, we'll again be able to expand what equity means for the city of Los Angeles. But I appreciate everything that the City Council has done thus far. I look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of questions. One,
I'm concerned that we obviously all want the social equity program to work. So I want to know, do we have enough staff to actually do the hand-holding that might be required for folks that don't have as much expertise and are doing this for the first time? And are we planning workshops to help make sure that everybody that enters this actually has the opportunity to really succeed? So I think we've heard some concerns today and other places that we won't do enough to make that happen.
Correct. And thank you, Councilmember Koretz. I appreciate the question. I think that it's going to be important for us to be intentional about the infrastructure that we create around the social equity program, because the social equity program itself is central to our licensing program. We give priority in processing to folks who can gain access to our program, but if these folks can't sustain themselves in this regulatory market, they will have licenses and then quickly lose those licenses due to not being able to continue to move forward with the compliance program. Do we have enough staff and resources? At this point, no, we do not. The department in our, and as we continue to build out the department, there has been an intention to allow the department to bring on a social equity program coordinator. That has not happened yet. We would like to be able to expand essentially our contractual services to contract out with entities that can provide legal services, that can provide businesses with assistance to review some of these social equity agreements. We want to be able to host workshops throughout the city. We want to be able to walk applicants through our licensing process. We're building to that point, and important to note that across the board, this isn't just the case for the social equity program, this is the case for our entire licensing and regulatory program. But the council made an intentional decision to include the social equity program as a part of our overall regulatory program and scheme, and so we want to be able to move forward with both simultaneously. And so there is a need for additional funding for the social equity program, for additional hands, working with the nonprofit community. There are folks in the city of Los Angeles who are very interested in doing this work, and folks who have the skill set to do this work. And so we want to be able to convene gatherings to identify who these stakeholders are, figure out what is the appropriate infrastructure to create around this program, and it is fluid. I engage with conversations with folks in Oakland, San Francisco, and Sacramento on a regular basis as they figured it out as well, but it's going to be a true challenge for the city because we are the largest local jurisdiction to do this, and so I would appreciate and continue to appreciate your support as we move this conversation forward.
And also, it's unclear to me, but it seems like we're going to pull from the same pot of money to do the social equity work and to do the enforcement that we need, especially against illegal dispensaries. Is there a better way to structure that so we're not pulling from two very desirable areas that we want to be sure we fund?
I appreciate the question, and I think it's going to be important for the city to take very seriously the funding that it dedicates to both enforcement and social equity. I don't think that it's necessary for those funds to come out of the same pot, so to speak, but I think that there does need to be funding dedicated to enforcement. I think that the development and implementation of a enforcement strategy is not going to be effective unless it is funded. At the same time, there are critical services and programs that are necessary for this enforcement conversation to move forward. It is my understanding that as the language is currently included, that the department would have the discretion. I know that illegal enforcement is named as how that money should be spent, but again, it's important to note that the department currently does not have the authority to enforce against unlawful activity. And the truth of the matter is that we need to, for the first time, do a real assessment of the scale of unlawful activity in the city. I don't think that we've done that To this point, we have been encouraging and are working with folks to compile data sets so that the city has an expansive understanding of who all of the unlawful and unauthorized operators are. But I think that once we identify the scale of the unlawful activity in the city, it will become very apparent that we cannot dedicate 25% of 1% of gross receipts to tackle this issue. There's going to need to be real money dedicated to enforcement and real money dedicated to equity.
Well, and when you come to that point at a later point, I would encourage you to keep the council informed of whatever shortfalls you have, because frankly, moving more slowly in implementing this, the costs of that are certainly going to be felt in terms of revenues. So I think every step we take to move this forward more quickly and more effectively will pay dividends for us rather than the opposite.
Thank you.
Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. And excuse me, thank you, Ms. Packer, especially for your last point that you just made about the cost of enforcement, which I couldn't agree with you more. There will be significantly greater costs than what we're prepared for right now relating to enforcement against illegal operators, but also other enforcement activities that the city will be required to engage in related to this, the expansion of cannabis sales in Los Angeles. There's no question about it, which is why I think it's important that we're all mindful that the idea that somehow this is going to produce a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for this city is grossly overstated, because there are costs associated with this that we have understated while we've overstated the potential, I believe, for revenues. So I want to talk first about testing. It was my hope, and I think I made this point way back when we were talking about this, that the very first thing that we should be licensing is testing. We should be licensing local laboratories in Los Angeles to ensure that testing is done here and that the product that's sold on the streets of in the businesses of Los Angeles is tested by people in Los Angeles, and it's certified as being tested. And my understanding is right now that testing requirement has not yet kicked in, right? It kicks in July.
Correct. The state of California has its specific testing requirements. Part of the challenge is that through our licensing process, the department has not had the ability, or because we have missed our April 1st, 2018 deadline with phase 2, which was somewhat tied to when we could begin testing, that timeline has been moved back. But what's included before you today would allow us to effectuate the implementation of accepting applications for testing.
Great. Well, I just urge all of us to expedite that process to the greatest degree possible. That should be our first priority, in my view. I want to speak a little bit to item number 4, and my question with item number 4 is about management companies. And I think a few of the members of the public who spoke touched on this topic. But my concern is that as we move forward with a social equity policy, that social equity policy runs the risk of being swamped by Cannabis Inc. being run out of some place in Canada and coming, and it's very important, if we're going to have local hiring requirements, local investment requirements, that the management companies also be bound by those sorts of requirements as well, so that we don't defeat the whole purpose of social equity that we're trying to accomplish by allowing this management company option. So what I would like to encourage, and I don't know if, Mr. President, this is necessary as an amendment, maybe this is something that the city attorney could just consider based on what we're recommending, but I would certainly urge that management companies be bound by the same requirements that social equity applicants are bound by in order to qualify as social equity applicants. Is that something that is, and I just want to make sure that's within the intention of what we're giving to the city attorney, and if it's not, I would move it as an amendment.
City attorney, can you just take care of that, or do we need to take an official?
I think we can include it within the current motion as appropriate.
Okay.
Great. Unless other members feel otherwise, I think that would be a good way to go. All right. I'm already over time, Mr. President. I want to talk about number 9. I can come back if...
No, why don't you let's knock it out.
Okay, great. Thank you. So a few things on number 9. First, I just want to clarify that the 1% special tax is intended to be additional revenue, not encompassed in the $40 million in GRT that we currently have budgeted or the $10 million in fees and so on that we have budgeted. This is additional. It's intended to be additional money on top of what we already have.
That's correct. That's the intent of the ballot measure.
Very good. So with that then, on the portion that is to be distributed between council offices for community use within each council district, the one part of that I would urge that we strike is the final sentence of 1A1, which says that that portion of the revenues cannot be used to establish a new sensitive use under Article 5, Chapter 10 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code. What that language would mean is that a council member who had revenues from this source would be prohibited from creating a park, creating a library, creating any sort of thing that council member may feel is very important in their district. And I think it's obvious why that's in there. I think that should be left to the discretion of each council member as to what is the best use in their district, and that those uses should not be excluded. So I would move,
and I'll second that,
on item 9A, that we strike that final sentence.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. And then, Mr. President, just lastly, I don't have an objection or a comment per se, but on Section 2, obviously the biggest concern here is that this fundamentally would change the revenue dynamics that we have. We're talking about significantly changing the gross receipts tax rates and having it change over time and so forth. I get that this is merely an ordinance, and we'd be able to consider that further when it comes back. And I appreciate, Mr. President, that you've included a provision in this that requires a complete economic analysis of revenue impacts by Friday, June 15th. I would ask that we also have these changes considered by Budget and Finance before the ordinance would be approved by the council. So thank you very much, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Krikorian. Mr. Harris Dawson.
And thank you, Mr. Koretz and Mr. Krikorian, for your comments. They're much appreciated. And thank all of you for your work helping build this arc as the flood has already begun. It's very, very impressive work. I wanted to call out the part of the what's before us that talks about enforcement. And I don't think we need an amendment, but I wanted to get verbal clarification on this question of enforcement. So enforcement, I think, is important, number one, because the voters went to the polls and voted on specific enforcement measures, distancing requirements, all the rest. As far as I'm concerned, there's no more clear a bell that can be rung than when the voters go to the polls and say something. And I think your acknowledgement earlier that we're not quite up to the task yet is consistent with what we see in the community. Just literally every spot in District 8 where you could have a retail dispensary that meets the distancing requirements, literally everywhere you go, there are 4, 5, 6 illegal operators in those locations. And so it's not in the interest of a business person to come and go the legal route if they're going to be competing with 6 people who are either not paying taxes or fake paying taxes, because we've been in shops that have taxes listed as if they're paying taxes. They're not paying taxes at all. I wanted to get clarification about the money that we'll set aside for enforcement. In this measure, it seems to be tied to the Department of Cannabis Regulation. As far as I know, the department doesn't have responsibility or authority for enforcement. And I just want to make sure we don't confuse residents and policymakers by granting money for enforcement to a department or an agency that doesn't have responsibility authority for it. So if you all could talk about the logic of that and actually how that will work.
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Harris-Dawson. As it's been articulated to me, the department would have the discretion as to how it spent those funds, with the ability to spend the funds via the various categories that have been designated. But that being said, I think it would be completely appropriate to remove the illegal enforcement language as well, particularly if it's going to be housed with the department. Now, the department does have a role to play in this enforcement conversation. Anytime anyone in the city is talking about cannabis, we're related to that conversation. We're interested in making sure that the voters and the initiative that has passed has been enforced. That being said, again, we have been coordinating with a number of different agencies, building and safety, fire, city attorney, LAPD, on the development and implementation of an enforcement strategy. And I think we've made progress. I know that there has been a press conference last week, and I communicate with LAPD on a regular basis. They share information about their enforcement efforts, and there has been a number of enforcement actions that have been taken. But again, if we don't try to address this issue comprehensively and collaboratively, it'll be more of the same whack-a-mole where people open up the very next day. And I've heard from community members also to the point that you raised. It's the exact locations where illegal activity that are blocking social equity applicants from participating. And so I think that we have to figure this out. We have to figure it out quickly. I'd be interested to hear from other stakeholders about the illegal enforcement and this being named in this particular section. My concern is that at the end of the day, if this is the only money that's being specifically dedicated to illegal enforcement, folks at the end of the day will say, well, DCR has that money, let's pull those funds, and these funds need to be used for the social equity program.
It would be great to get further clarification from the city attorneys.
David Michelson again with the Office of the City Attorney. I mean, ultimately, I believe legally, the City Council has the budgetary function and decision-making with respect to where funds might go. For instance, whether they're going to go law enforcement purposes with LAPD, with our prosecutors, with other parts of the city family. So I think Kat Packert's concerns sort of resonate in that way as well. So even though the money may come in pursuant to this ballot measure, ultimately the City Council, through its budgetary powers, retains, I think, that power in terms of allocating the funds.
So, Mr. President, my just closing question or remark would ask if we need to amend what's in front of us, or is that something that in the drafting of, in the further drafting of this item, if we can make what's been expressed here crystal clear, so that we don't leave any room for confusion for people who might come after us.
We believe it can be handled in the drafting in terms of what we bring back.
Thank you.
Mr. Price.
I want to, first of all, thank you and my colleague Marquise Harris-Dawson for really taking strong leadership in the social equity component of these regs as it moves forward, and appreciate the work of the department in helping to craft it and help us move it forward. I support the allocation or the reallocation of funding as been proposed. I think it's very progressive and thoughtful. Obviously, lots of details, but I think we're moving in the right direction. For my constituents, I think as important as the social equity is enforcement. It's something everyone's talking about, enforcement. And I know you talked about doing some kind of a survey and finding out how many illegals there are. A real shortcut is look for these green crosses, that abound everywhere. And so I just hope that that we can work more proactively. We talked about the police. Maybe DMV cuts off the power. I mean, lots of other things that we can be doing. I think we should try to figure out how we, kind of turn the heat up on these illegals. And we know it's going to be a lot of whack-a-mole, but also we can close some of these activities down, I think, if we're a little more proactive. Part of the infrastructure we've been talking about, though, this new infrastructure, you referenced it also, would accommodate some incubator-type projects. And I know I've talked to several individuals who've sort of talked about this. What's the department's perception of an incubator, how it would work, how it comes into play in our overall regulation?
So thank you, Councilmember Price. I appreciate the comment and question on both enforcement and the incubator. I'll address the question related to the incubator projects first. The department has already engaged with a number of stakeholders who are interested in incubating and providing space and supportive services for licensees under the social equity program. Part of what we've recognized is that commercial cannabis activity is largely expansive. It includes cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, testing, and for many of these fields, there are highly technical skills that are necessary to operate machinery or to move forward with the implementation of standard operating procedures. And so part of what we imagine this process to look like is that there would be a number of sites throughout the city where folks could engage and provide that type of education and training so that there is a pipeline of not only employment, but folks who are skilled and could have access to economic opportunity that can be sustained. Part of what we'd like to do is to require these incubator projects to register with the city so that there's essentially transparency in how these various facilities and relationships are being set up. We already require a number of disclosures relative to the social equity program, relative to the management companies, and so I think that really the combination of the social equity program, the language relative to management companies, the ability to register incubators and this new shared facility license, I think is going to be extremely important to begin these conversations. And I believe that allowing the department to have the flexibility, because again, there are already stakeholders who are saying, well, we have this model and we have this model. I don't think that there's a one size fits all. I think that we want to engage with community members and stakeholders to support infrastructure that's already being developed within the city.
Thank you. Mr. Bloomingdale.
Great. I think I'm getting most of my questions answered on the side here, but first of all, I really appreciate all the work that's gone into this, and particularly that a good 50% is going to go to the areas impacted throughout the city, so thank you for that. Just a question maybe for the city attorney. Could we do most of this by ordinance, or how much of this has to be on the ballot? And what's the reason for the split? Because some of these are good ideas that we could potentially implement right away.
So a ballot measure is only required because we're increasing taxes. We're imposing a 1% gross receipts tax, and then these surcharges in addition to that gross receipts tax on specific activity. So to impose a tax, you have to go to the voters. To reduce tax rates, you don't need to go to the voters, and so that's why I understand the motion to be structured that way.
So even though the net may not be an increase?
Yeah, any authorization to increase a tax has to go to the voters, even if the city doesn't ultimately charge that amount. So for the first part of this, which is the special tax, to get the authorization to impose a special tax, we have to go to the voters. We have authorization under Measure M to apply certain general taxes, and those are being reduced under Item 2 at a later date. Those you don't need to go to the voters.
But if the net is not an increase?
You still are authorizing, because the reduction is at the discretion of council, the second part of this, as long as you're authorizing a certain increase, even if you don't ultimately exact that increase, you need to go to the voters to get that authorization, even if the net is a decrease.
Right, so there's no way to keep it if we had some backstop so that we never increased the net, but that we were able to make changes from within the gross receipts tax. Is that not a way that we could move forward in some way?
Without a ballot measure, no. You would need to still get the authority from the voters under Prop 218 to change the rates or impose different rates that are, it's not the revenue generated, it's the actual tax imposition that needs to get approved by the voters.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Krikorian?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's kind of technical, but after Mr. Harris Dawson's comments, I'm trying to figure how we can ensure the greatest connection between where money is appropriated and who has the authority to use that money. And I feel like there's a disconnect here, and I feel like you feel like that as well, Ms. Packer. So on 1A sub 2 of item number 9A, the 25% that would be distributed to the DCR that includes the enforcement of against illegal operations and so forth, among these other things. I wonder if, rather than specifying that this money is appropriated to DCR, whether we should specify the use of those funds and then leave it to the budgetary process as to where that money would go, so that we, through our ordinary process and implementing ordinances and so on, can match up the money to where there is authority to use the money. And the practical concern here is that by specifying a particular department in ballot language, if there's ever a change in circumstances, if there's a change in the organization of the department, if there's a change in the name of the department even, we would probably have to go back to the voters to change that, and that doesn't make sense to me. So can we do it that way? Can we just make this a special fund with designated range of uses, but not necessarily appropriate that through this language to the department? And would that meet your concerns, Ms. Packer, as well? And wouldn't that make more sense to avoid future challenges?
You can do that. We would want some direction as to the amount. Right now, the way that motion is framed, a certain percentage is going to council for improvements in areas located near businesses, and a certain other percentage for these other two purposes in item 1A. If there's a certain allocation you want to make that would go to illegal enforcement activities, regardless of the department it goes to, that would be clearly doable in this motion, and it would be clear in some ways as to the purpose that the item is going to, the money is going to, rather than the department that it's going to. But some specificity would be helpful.
So what I'll add is that I'm sure that it is perfectly the case that it can be changed to go that route. That is not the department's recommendation. Again, the 25% that's being designated here, we would like the complete flexibility to use those funds comprehensively to address all of the issues that are included, absent illegal enforcement.
Yeah. That wouldn't be my preference. But beyond that, regardless of what our different preferences are of how it's spent, the practical concern is you're putting in ballot language an appropriation to a particular department, and I don't know that we ever do that with special funds. I think our special funds typically are defined by use, and then it's up to the council where to put that money in an appropriation. So that should be left to ordinance. It should be left to the budget process, and the ballot language before the voters should simply specify the uses, in my view.
And I would support
I don't know
that.
if the city attorney has that can simply be done by striking to the DCR from 1A12. And again, there will be implementing ordinances that implement this, and I think we get what the intention here is, and we'll have further debates about how to appropriate that. I'm concerned that the ballot language would tie our hands. And then similarly in sub 3, it says 25% distributed to the Cannabis Youth Prevention and Child Strengthening Program. I would say instead something like 25% distributed to Cannabis Youth Prevention and Child Strengthening Programs. So it's generic, it's more generic, it's around a particular use, not a particular program, because that could change. I mean, these things change by the month, and we should have the flexibility to be able to change those appropriations within the broader instructions that the voters would be giving us. Does that make sense?
And City Attorney, I thought, Mr. Michelson, I thought you gave a thumbs up that we can. So, Mr. Krikorian, I agree with you, and I would think that they can wordsmith that.
Great. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Weezar.
I want to clarify if that was actually an amendment that was made, and to clarify what the language would be. Was that, do we have an amendment for the language that's on the item A that, or are we leaving it, or?
So I would move, we probably should do that
Okay.
specifically. So
and,
I would.
And the reason I want to clarify is because I agree with you, Mr. Krikorian, and we're in the process right now of possibly looking at the possibility of creating a youth development department, and we're discussing it. There's a task force on it. They're going to make some recommendations as to how to best improve our infrastructure in the city to serve our youth, whether it's a department or something else. And if we move in that direction, some of these funds may be available for that. And so we have to provide as much flexibility as we can in this language so that we don't bog ourselves down with this language. So I agree, but I didn't hear what that language would be. I just wanted to clarify we make some amendment. Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect example, and I'd be happy to do that. So I would then move that in motion 9A, section 1, subparagraph A2, that the words "to the DCR" be stricken. And then in section 1, subsection A3, that the phrase "the Cannabis Youth Prevention and Child Strengthening Program" be replaced with "Cannabis Youth Prevention and Child Strengthening Programs" without capitalization.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll second it if that needs to be seconded. Okay. Let's prepare then to vote on the item. Let's vote on them together. So this is 4 and 9. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate.
12 ayes.
So we just voted on 4 and 9 as amended. If I can get Mr. Walsh come forward, John Walsh. You have item 22 and general public comment. Ms. McAllister, if you're still here, items 27, 28, 31 in general public comment, come forward, please.
Okay, good morning. Okay, it's still morning. Okay, so let's talk about let's see, about building that wall. You want companies who want to do business with the city of Los Angeles to be denied city contracts if they're helping to build that wall. They're supposed to help to build that wall, and it's illegal for you to interfere with anyone's business to tell them who they can't work for and who they can work for. They can't get city contracts. And I hope these businesses file lawsuits against the city. You cannot do that. They can work for anyone they want to work for. If they want to help stop these 5 million illegal aliens, adding another 5 million illegal aliens into the United States, they can do that. We need people to build that wall. We need to get these illegal aliens out of affordable housing and get Americans off the street. I haven't seen one Mexican land on.
No. Let's get back on the subject.
About that wall. The wall is on the agenda. Please don't interrupt me.
No, but you have to speak to the wall. So go
I'm speaking to the wall. We want to build that wall so that we can get these illegal aliens out of this country. Any company that want to work to build that wall, they have a right to do that. And I hope they sue if you don't give them city contracts. Now, another thing. Here, I'm talking about Weezar. He's the Mr. Skid Row. Now, Weezar, you're not building like you're supposed to, but I did drive over there the other day. You're doing something on the other side of the street, in the 300 block. But I see you do have that 401 on here today. But my question is...
Hold on, Ms. McAllister. Guys, I'm going to call you all, but let her let her speak. If you guys, I'm going to call everybody whose name that I have. So if you would just sit in your chair until it's not over yet. We're going to call everybody. I'm just asking to please sit down. I'm going to call everybody. Ms. McAllister, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm still on 31, Weezar. Now, Weezar, you're supposed to build that 100-unit building there right on Wall Street. 401, okay, 401 East 7th Street. You're not doing it. And I don't understand here. They want to give you $38 million, but here I have in the actual website where you have on the motion that the money is supposed to come from HHH. So how are you going to give him $30 million from the multifamily housing revenue bonds when he's supposed to get this money from HHH? I don't understand. It's about the same, about $39 million. So on the agenda here, you want to get it out of the city multifamily house revenue bond. But on the website, as far as the HACLA is concerned, you're supposed to get some, it's distributed. You're supposed to get some from HHH and other places. I don't understand, so I'll figure that one out. Another thing, here it says that this is new development on this agenda. But on the website, it's not new development. You are going to take that existing warehouse and not tear it down, but redo it. So this is not new development. So why do you need $38 million? You are taking something, you're not doing it from scratch, and you're charging $91,000 for each apartment. Come on, guys. We know better. It's not new. You're taking it and redoing it. You should not need $38 million to do that. Let's talk about it. See, I dealt with accounting. I had a business for 12 years. I know what I'm talking about. I know about money. I know about millions. I had a software development business, so you know I know. Okay, now let's get my public comment, sir.
1 minute, general public comment.
Okay, I want to congratulate Mr. Herb Weston. I did drive by your development the other day, and you got it boarded up, ready to work. And I saw 3 black men sitting in front. They want to know when they can get the application. I will let them know. They want to get in there, they can get in there. Now, we're not going to fill this housing with illegal aliens. We're going to be around there all day long. Mr. Price, he left the room, but he's not doing a darn thing. That 4060 South Figueroa, not far from here, he's not doing a thing. Harris Dawson's is not doing a darn thing. 8730 on Vermont, he's not doing anything. I drove by that other day. Now, if you got a different address, I ask you, and I Instagrammed you. Bring it to me because I Instagrammed you. You told me you had the list. Give me the list, and I'll call you and give you some compliments. See, but I'm very proud of Mr. Our president here. He's on the case. He's got it boarded up, and he's ready to do his job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Walsh. Go ahead, Mr. Walsh. He's got 1 minute on item and then 1 minute on general public. Yes, Mr. Walsh.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. J. Walsh Confidential, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. As far as the agenda is concerned, it's typical, the hidden items. You hide items. The most important item, of course, is number 32. This is where the Venice Beach Boardwalk, the guy
Mr. Walsh,
somebody.
you signed up for 22 and then general public comment. So your comment now should be directed to item 22, street lighting.
Well, street lighting is actually one of your strong points. Because when people get murdered in Hollywood, the people.
Let's give him his 1 minute for general public comment. Okay, Mr.
1
Walsh,
minute.
go ahead.
Okay, Ramadan. You're going to hold another day off for Ramadan. I think you're a black Muslim, Herb, because I want you to know that I spent 2 years in the Middle East. And I just want you to know, Mr. O'Farrell, if you started talking about cocksucking, you would be murdered.
Come on.
It is against the law.
Mr. President, that is not within the subject matter jurisdiction of this.
Wait a second.
Mr. Walsh.
The question is,
Mr. Walsh, come on.
look, why are you celebrating Ramadan? Are you a black Muslim, Miss City Attorney? I want to know your religion before you vote on this. You know, you people are such total scumbags. This election will at least get rid of a number of you. And Antonio, don't vote for anybody. Don't vote for Antonio.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Pearman, Donna Pearman. (27) through 31, and do you have general public comment?
Yeah, I got it. Okay.
And Mr. President, before the speaker begins, there have been amending motions posted, circulated, and distributed for items 30 and 31.
Okay, go ahead, Donna.
Okay,
Ms. Pearman, come on.
Okay, shit. Okay, number 27, we got over here. We have the right to protect our borders. Generally have some of the case who's living in California. So Trump won the election on the promise of a wall. So I'm for this wall. We take care of, we need to take care of the illegal alien problem that we have now. So we know what we have. So we must have the wall to we blossom and a completely unmanageable problem where we have no solution, no help for the illegals, or God help, no help for California or the United States. There's not a white supremacy issue because we have blacks and Hispanics who are also for the wall. So I'm for the wall. Okay, and I'll say in a nutshell, almost $700,000 for his temporary bridge at a facility, at a parking lot, at a historical monument. Are you crazy? We don't need to have this bridge and have this trailers where the people can't even really afford these trailers, so apparently they probably won't be staying in these trailers. So I'm not for this bridge, and I'm not for the trailers, and I'm not for all these huge housing atrocities. I'm number 29, number 30, number 31. They'll just bring on more traffic. There's not enough parking. And these are CRIs. One I saw, even CRA projects. That's why we need to bring conservatives back. And that's why we need the Republican Party, because you're just going to be tearing up and bringing up all these housing projects. And it adds up. One over here that's 300,000. And when over here is another 30,000 and 436 multifamily, 250,000, and we got another 40,000. Basically, we're going bankrupt. People are American citizens can't do anything. We bring up all these things for these homeless, and they won't even be able to stay because it's all temporary because they have no ability to pay for these things. So I'm totally against it. I'm for the wall, and we need to get rid of all these things. People are making us spend too much money on these projects, and they have no idea how we're going to pay for it. It's our tax dollars that they're paying for, not just some general money.
Give her general public comment minute.
Okay, public comment. We got great opportunity to be able to get conservatism, things who care about everybody in this state. So we got to have Travis Allen for governor. We must have Travis Allen for governor so we can get rid of the gas tax and get rid of the billion-dollar bullet train. We need to have Ricardo Benitez over in Assembly 39. David Hernandez over there for the lieutenant governor. We must have him for lieutenant governor. And Bernita Bonnell. We need to get rid of Cardenas. He's not doing anything for his district. He doesn't care about his district. He only cares about just having more projects we can't afford. We need to get rid of Dianne Feinstein. We need to have Aaron Cruz. We need to have Eric Previn. These people who care about people.
Thank you. Now, look, wait a minute, ma'am. You're disrupting the meeting. Sit down, okay? No, you're going to sit down. I'm getting ready to, no. I try to do the best I can to call up these names. You standing up and down, what you're doing is you are wasting time. So I will call your name. Just sit down. No, we're not going to go back and forth. Sit down so I can begin to call the names of individuals that came in earlier. No, you can sit down. Magali Samra Saba, and if I mispronounce it, I apologize. Tahida Shakur, Craig, Tanisha Denard, Gloria Gonzalez. No, well, ma'am, this is not a back and forth. Ki Utsumi, come forward. Lupia Carvalho, Mirella Saba, Akhil Gopal, Celine Hussein, Nadia Khan, Kyle Scott, Joseph Juarez. Go ahead, sir.
You weren't. I don't know if you called the names in order, but we're only speaking to half of the city council. I object to that. I say no to CVE, counter-violent extremism, because it's anti-black, anti-brown, anti-Muslim people. CVE implies the Muslim, black, and brown community themselves are at risk, which plays into racist stereotype that justifies increased criminalization. CVE categorized black, brown, Muslim youth as national security threat and follows white supremacist Donald Trump's anti-Muslim, anti-Mexican, and black, and Donald Trump, including police state law and order.
Thank you, sir.
We need 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you. As the next speaker comes, let's vote. Madam, sir, you have to sit down. Thank you. You have to sit down. Sergeant, I have business to do. Just help him find a seat. Let's vote on items 22 and 27. Items 22 and 27. Open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Identify yourself.
My name is Akhil Gopal, speaking on behalf of Jewish Voice for Peace, a majority Jewish organization. We stand with the city's most vulnerable communities, including black Muslim youth, Muslim refugee youth, undocumented youth, against this anti-black Islamophobic attack called CVE, which is being waged by the Department of Homeland Security. In this insidious program, everything from intimate conversations with mental health experts, mosques and community centers, campuses and classrooms become sites for increased surveillance and criminalization. When more than half of the city's budget already goes to police, we urgently need to follow the leadership of Youth Justice Coalition and other organizations in divesting from police and punishment and investing in communities of color. As a majority Jewish organization, we're also deeply against the role that the Anti-Defamation League has taken, collaborating with the DHS in the Boston area CVE pilot program, and hiring George Salim, one of the architects of CVE, to oversee its law enforcement training programs, including where the police train with the Israeli military.
Thank you,
we oppose
sir. Thank you. Next speaker. Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker. Identify yourself.
My name is Celine Kusini. I'm representing the Palestinian Youth Movement of Los Angeles to say that we strongly condemn CVE. PYM represents a large part of the Arab and Arab Muslim community in LA, and we work with hundreds of families who are refugees and who are among the targets of the CVE program. This discriminatory grant will put our communities, including incoming refugees, in an increasingly vulnerable position. CVE is not a unique program. It is rooted in a long history of anti-black, Islamophobic, racist policies that have historically legitimized white supremacy and the criminalization of our our communities. The mayor's office claims that CVE is not targeting Muslims, yet almost all of the CVE subgrantees serve Muslim populations. The program targets organizations that don't even fall within LA County, such as the TIA Foundation in Orange County, which serves refugees and immigrants who mostly identify as Muslim. Your decision will thus impact people that are not even constituents of LA County, specifically because CVE clearly intends to criminalize Muslims through the racist, Islamophobic assumptions that have, again, historically been used to justify the targeting, policing, and surveillance of our community.
Thank you. Next speaker. Identify yourself.
My name is Nadia Khan. The majority of our comrades had to leave because we do not get paid for this, unlike you all. We have people sitting over here laughing at text messages, talking. People have left. This is ridiculous. I'm here to speak out against countering violent extremism as well. It's basically pushing a narrative that's naming our black and brown youth as violent extremists, as threats to national security. When gang databases came out, the city council, people were repeatedly telling folks, this is not good for our communities. It further criminalizes and creates harm. Now we're telling you this with countering violent extremism. This is part of a much larger war on youth. People are coming up one after the other. Do not accept this grant money. Go with what the LA for Youth campaign is talking about. Be willing to invest just a little more money than 0.5% of your budget on youth development. This is a shame. You should not be accepting CVE grant money, and it's crap that our fight is reduced to 1 minute each, and we're completely ignored, even though we come on unpaid time early to make sure our names get in.
Thank you. Next speaker. Identify yourself. Your name?
Hello, my name is Joseph Juarez. Since September 11, 2001, our government has wasted trillions of dollars into waging wars and destroying humanity, in which Islamophobia is a mechanism of xenophobia for upholding that ongoing global tyranny. Therefore, voting yes on CVE is a vote to uphold racism, including white supremacy here in Los Angeles, the rest of this country, and around the world. So for the sake of black, brown, and Muslim communities, and for the sake of humanity, I urge you to vote against CVE. And I stand with students, families, teachers, and concerned community members, including the Palestinian Youth Movement, in completely rejecting the city's participation in countering violent extremism. And I also stand with them in opposing Zionism here in this country and around the world.
Thank you, Mr. Juarez. So again, I'm looking now to if Kyle Scott is in the audience, come forward. Audrey George, Hamid Khan, Jed Parrott, and Molly Lampert. Identify yourself, sir.
Yeah, I'm Kyle Scott. I'm with the Los Angeles chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. We're here to say that we stand in solidarity with our allies in the Youth Palestinian Movement, the Black Student Union, United Teachers of Los Angeles, the Immigrant Youth Coalition, and Stop LAPD Spying, in opposing the racist J. Edgar Hoover-esque CVE program. I hope that every self-anointed member of the hashtag resistance here will stand with the diverse communities of Los Angeles and not with Donald Trump. Thank you.
Thank you. Identify yourself.
My name is Masih Fuladi from the Council on American Islamic Relations. Before I make comment, can I submit documents for the council? Yeah,
you make your comments. I'll send somebody to get that.
Great.
Always.
At a time where the state of California is being forced...
Where they're fighting over who takes you.
Thank you.
Give them a minute.
All right. At a time where the state of California is being forced to defend the sanctuary laws from the Trump administration in court, in an 18-month period where we have witnessed the rescinding of DACA and increases in deportations, as we wait to hear from the Supreme Court regarding the Muslim ban that has torn families apart, and as we approach a census that may include a citizenship question, I cannot believe it is necessary for me to stand before you with a letter signed by over 60 organizations from the greater Los Angeles area and across the nation to ask that you not accept money from the Department of Homeland Security to surveil Muslim communities. The same Department of Homeland Security is deporting Angelenos and banning Muslims. Since President Trump's election, the city has taken many steps to protect community members. It has established a commission to address issues concerning immigration. We have seen the mayor, the city attorney, and many of you speak out against issues that impact all of us. I urge you all to make LA a true sanctuary city and not forget about the Muslim community.
Thank you. So again, Molly Lambert, Johnny Coleman, Miriam Somira, and ma'am, if you would identify yourself.
My name is Audrey George. CVE does not make us safe. I join others here to say that we don't want a properly crafted or constitutional CVE program that claims to fight white supremacist extremism, but in reality targets and harms our communities. We reject the DHS and the larger police state, and we reject programs that criminalize and target communities of color and Muslim communities. This is already a scary country and a scary city for Muslim, Black, and brown youth, and now they are at threat of being labeled threats to national security. CVE is infiltrating, Muslim communities disguised as public and mental health support and social services through K through 12 school programs, through partnerships with various universities, organizations, mosques, religious institutions, and often takes the shape of grant money.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, please. Thank you. Next speaker. Identify.
Hi, thank you. This is Jed Parriott. I'm with the Democratic Socialists of America. I live in Echo Park, and I want to first speak out on behalf of DSA and say that, of course, we unequivocally oppose CVE, which is racist on its face, but I also want to speak about the proposed development at 3900 Figueroa. It's a shame that more of the city council couldn't be here, but for the city of LA to be in the middle of a tragic, embarrassing homelessness crisis, this body deliberating later over spending my tax dollars to help build a new retail, hotel, and high-end apartment development is Orwellian. Councilmember Price's motion claims that, quote, this community requires additional hotel rooms to serve these growing tourist demands, including the 2028 Olympics and the Paralympic Games. This proposal proves that 28 Olympics are already being used as an excuse to drive displacement of low-income and rent-burdened tenants in LA and divert funds from other important civic resources. We categorically oppose this development, which would demolish 8 rent-stabilized buildings. It would destroy existing affordable housing units and displace those families that currently live there. We have a homelessness crisis. This is what causes homelessness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Hamid Khan with the Stop LAPD Spying Coalition. In December of 2016, the United Teachers Los Angeles, the largest or the second largest school district in the United States, passed a very strong motion along with the House of Representatives of UTLA against countering violent extremism and preventing violent extremism. This is the teachers speaking directly to you, and we strongly demand that you pay heed to those who deal with students day in and day out. They have seen the devastation of gang databases. They have seen the devastations of criminalization of random searches. And now what you're doing is that you will be complicit in declaring youth as a national security threat. So this is what you need to do. You need to take a very strong motion against it. You need to send a message to the rest of the country and tell the mayor that if he wants to play real leadership, then he should rethink how much money is being invested in youth development rather than criminalizing the youth, rather than demonizing the youth. CVE is very much a part of these narratives that are being built about black identity extremism.
Thank you. Thank you. Anzur Komuk and Patsy Van Dyke, if you'd identify yourself.
My name is Molly Lambert, and I'm here with No Olympics Los Angeles today to protest against the building of the 3900 Figueroa luxury development. We're in a historic housing crisis in Los Angeles. You can see it all around us. The people are being displaced and unhoused and forced out onto the streets, and then being told they can't stay on the streets. They have to move around. They're being swept constantly. Anyone can tell that what we need in this city is affordable housing, not more luxury development, especially not for tourists, imaginary tourists for the Olympics 10 years from now. People are being displaced every day, and those people are the people that we should be honoring and serving. You guys work for us. You should take care of your constituents, not some imaginary rich tourists for the Olympics. We need rent-stabilized housing. These tenants really need to stay in their homes. Do the right thing.
Thank you. Next, identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Miriam Samara. I'm a UCLA student and I stand as a brown person against the city's participation in CVE. It's divisive and it would alienate our communities and people in school systems. It's based on prejudice and it breaks the unity in our communities, and it's also based on a vague definition and it would become unreliable. CVE criminalizes and violates the rights of our community members. It presents a toxic environment that impacts the unity and trust in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Please identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Anzor Kamuk. I'm a graduating student at UCLA, a volunteer with the Council on American Islamic Relations, and I'm also a child of Muslim immigrants from Syria and Russia. I'm here to ask that the City Council vote no on approving the Mayor's grant proposal for countering violent extremism. If you choose to accept the funding stemming from this program, what you'd be doing is, at the city level, institutionalizing a set of guidelines that instruct my community members to report each other to the police and DHS based on discredited models of radicalization that are based on stereotypes and arbitrary descriptors, like if someone goes to mosque in the morning versus later in the day. I don't believe it's appropriate for the city to approve a list of guidelines that limits our First Amendment right to freedom of religion by dictating the right and wrong ways to practice my own religion. The other problem that we find is that surveillance programs like this don't work. Rather than strengthening relationships between the police and our community, what we see happen consistently at cities across the country is that when Muslim communities experience higher levels of surveillance and criminalization, they lose trust and confidence in the police and are less likely to report dangerous individuals or to call the police when it's necessary. Thank you.
Last speaker.
Good afternoon, Johnny Coleman with DSA and No Olympics here. I'm here to comment on the FIG project, but I would also like to mention that CVE is racist and xenophobic trash, so please don't support it. We're in the middle of a historical housing crisis. A lot of you all last week at PATH publicly admitted that the problem is the lack of affordable housing stock. So in what universe does it make sense to remove 8 buildings of rent-stabilized units to make way for people who don't fucking live here? You're probably going to vote 12-0 against this anyway, but we need to figure out a better plan for the tenants there. We're going to see more luxury developments that are using the Olympics as an excuse to grease the palms of developers and to grease these deals. We'll be here for every single one of these. Thank you.
Thank you. Audrey Kuo, please come forward.
Hi, I'm a steering committee member of Vigilant Love. I'm also here to urge that the City Council vote no on the Mayor's DHS grant. And I would also like to acknowledge that I'm a resident of Koreatown, and while I'm here, I want to point out that this city is making several changes that will further impact housing and homelessness in Los Angeles, and we ask that you stop surveilling our communities, stop targeting and making racist policies, as well as expand affordable housing in this city to ensure that people are actually able to go about their lives, practice their religions, and be able to live and afford being able to stay in this city. And I urge the City Council to recognize how all of these different issues are actually interrelated. As we're finding less and less ability for people to find housing, they're also being targeted, being criminalized for being poor, being criminalized for practicing their religion. And all of these different issues are impacting the quality of life of citizens and other residents of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. Okay, that concludes general public comment. Madam Clerk, what's before this body?
Items 28 and 29 can be voted on.
Okay, items 28, 29. On those items, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That brings us where?
Items 30 and 31 have had amending motions posted and circulated.
So let's vote on those 2 items as amended. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Let's recess the regular, move into the special.
Blumenfield, Bonham, Buscaino, Cedillo, Englander, Herstassen, Weezer, Koretz, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rodriguez, Rue Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, let's vote on how many of these items?
The special agenda has one item,
Let's-
item 34, which
let's-
is an item for which a public hearing has been held.
Let's vote on that. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Let's adjourn the special, return to the regular. And that would then bring us to what, posting?
Yes, council has motions for posting and referral.
They're posted, they're referred. Announcements, members? Seeing no announcements other than if you haven't voted, please go out and vote. If all members would rise for adjourning motions. Before we start with that, Ms. Martinez?
I want to make an announcement that E&E will start at 1:30 this afternoon. 1:30 E&E committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, I'm looking to my right. Adjourning motions to my right. I don't see any. Adjourning motions to my left. I don't see any. This meeting is adjourned.